broadcast.
Hello?
Hello, we're on.
Mr. Charlie, how are you?
I'm good, ready.
Your face will be very dangerous for the girls, eh?
I am following your footsteps and Khalid.
Mr. Hairul, we already broadcast now, and we already have 33 attendees.
Okay. So
Ready.
43 already. Oh, so altogether 500 something, yeah?
505. Let's hope they join this webinar.
Yeah, it's okay to start. Good start.
Yes, there are many people.
Still, I think 10 minutes more. So I'm sure they're having lunch or something.
Yeah.
Just have to wait a little bit.
No problem. We will start. We'll welcome speech 5 minutes more.
Yep.
Hello, Budi Ridwan Siadari, Tuyun Wahyu Pradana. They type in the chat room.
Yeah, I read your presentation, Charlie. I think it's quite summarized.
Yeah.
So you are introducing about VUCA.
And just stop me anytime if you want to translate or explain it more.
Okay, okay.
Nice hat, Mr. Khairul.
Yeah. Master of the village.
This is the kopiah from Aceh, you know.
Does it mean anything, Carol?
Well, you have to come to Aceh. Very nice places.
Okay.
And the very good taste of coffee.
Aceh means four countries there. A is Arabic, C is China, H India, and Aceh, Europe, and H is India. So you can see nice girl with blue eyes, Indian style, European. So very nice. Eh?
Good. Edmond and I will go there with you.
Let's make some event there.
I know you are the expert to choose, Charlie, so that's why I have to prepare something.
Strategic sourcing.
Strategic sourcing, eh?
It's a part of supply chain.
How's situation there in Indonesia now? Still a lot of increasing COVID.
The government is just changed the committee for COVID handling, ya, Pak Khalid, eh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because they are not quite happy with the current team. So this new team, I don't know, is it a part of the team see this presentation, Pak Khalid? Because Pak Khalid tried to share with them.
They now more focused with economy also.
Yeah, the economy will not be in order if COVID is not addressed with supply chain. As you can see later on, it will be my presentation. It's going to be an interesting session for today.
Yeah, hopefully. Itu siapa, Pak Khalid? Who else from KM present? Oh, Pak Samsul, eh? Pak Samsul. Pak Samsul, where are you now? Kalimantan?
In Banjarbaru, South Borneo.
Okay.
In my home, work from home.
Yeah. Quite far, eh?
In ASEAN region, Indonesia is #1, followed by Philippines.
Yeah, you are number 2.
Yeah.
Like a race, but a bad race.
Yeah,
Maybe September I could be. Kapten Budi Guansiadari. Halo Mbak Yuyun.
So, Pak Samsul, you are only in Banjar, no? No traveling?
No traveling in 4 months. I miss a plane.
Is a plane or flight attendee?
Charlie, both of the Charlie, both of them are the most instructor for procurement in Indonesia, and their travel time is very high. Before, Mr. Khalid, or if you want to book Mr. Khalid time, you need at least 3 months. Eh?
Yeah.
3 months in front. Eh? Fully booked all Indonesia.
Long lead time.
Yeah. And Mr. Samsul also.
Mr. Khairul, can we start?
Yeah.
Okay, I will start with welcome speech first, and then I will give the floor to you.
Yeah, there's getting to be more.
Yeah.
Maybe we start at 2 o'clock. Or 1 o'clock. 4 minutes more.
1 o'clock.
Maybe we start sharp at 1 o'clock.
Okay, okay. We start 1 o'clock.
They may not like us because we start early. Just make sure you start at 2 o'clock prompt.
Okay. 4 minutes more.
Yeah.
Hello, good afternoon, Mr. Bagus Prasetya Wicaksana from University Jenderal Sudirman. Welcome.
Welcome.
Mr. Kahar Palindungi, please show your face.
Hello, I am here.
Good to see you.
Charlie, you met Mr. Kahar before, eh?
Yeah.
Hello,
Oh,
Charlie.
you coming to many times? Many times is coming to Manila.
Yes. Good to see you are okay. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too again, Charlie. Last time we see at IFPSN,
Yes,
See?
in
Jakarta.
Jakarta, yeah.
Yes.
We went to Manila, eh? That is Manila background, isn't it? Pak Kahar.
Oh yeah, this is Manila background.
Yeah, in Pasia, Manila. Marriott.
Yes.
You see my background, my picture background? That's in Marriott, Manila.
That's 2018, eh? We missed that, eh?
Yeah. This time, no more. It's gonna be a big webinar, 3 days webinar, all in the morning session. Maybe we could work with you also on that one.
Okay. Mr. Kahar missed the food, yeah, Charlie.
But I think all hotels are having a really bad time opening up everywhere. Must be very bad too, because Indonesia is very much a tourist destination also.
Yeah.
Hope things will really get better now.
Kalau sekarang attendees sudah bisa dengar nggak Pak Khalid? Udah dengar ya?
We are at 63 attendees now.
It's building.
65.
65. Mr. Kahar, where are you now? In Makassar?
Makassar.
Okay. How about Makassar?
About what? COVID?
Yeah, of course. Because I cannot back to Makassar because COVID. Is still increase?
Still increase. Last day in 65.
Wow. Yeah, everywhere is still increasing.
Makassar number 3 in Indonesia.
Number 2 is South Borneo.
Okay, 1 o'clock.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, let's start.
Berdasarkan siklus kehidupan. Berkat kepedulian dan bantuan negara ekonomi maju, negara-negara berkembang mampu memberikan kontribusi besar bagi pertumbuhan ekonomi dunia. Namun, akhir-akhir ini, hubungan antar negara-negara ekonomi maju semakin lama semakin terlihat seperti Game of Thrones. Perang dagang semakin marak dan inovasi teknologi mengakibatkan banyak industri terguncang. Negara-negara yang tengah tumbuh juga sedang mengalami tekanan pasar yang besar. Dengan banyak masalah perekonomian dunia, sudah cukup bagi kita untuk mengatakan bahwa winter is coming.
Good afternoon and welcome to the international webinar conducted by the KMN Partners Firm. In the previous video, President of the Republic of Indonesia have stated 2 years ago that winter is coming. However, now the term has changed to winter has come and added to the terrible storm that hit the whole world. The COVID-19 pandemic made us realize that humanity is actually very vulnerable to nature. Our pride in opposing nature has been rewarded with very expensive lesson and even sacrificed the human soul. As a result of the worst pandemic in this century, health crises are everywhere, and even exacerbated by the economic crisis as evident by the fall of several countries to the brink of recession. But we must remember, the storm must pass. Winter will change to spring because that is also a natural trend. What we need to strengthen now is to keep ourselves alive in the midst of the winter that still engulfs, guarding the entire family, nation, and humanity. We need food, need medicine, need a variety of the key ingredients and supporting materials, which of course will require a reliable supply chain. Therefore, we gather today not in order to lament our fate, but to fight together, hand in hand, to stay alive and get through this storm. Sorry, disconnect.
Okay. Pak Samsul, Pak Kahar also disconnect.
Okay, I think there are many have some problem. Okay,
Okay.
continue.
Okay, continue.
We gather today not in order to lament our fate, but to fight together hand in hand to stay alive and get through this storm and to look at the spring and rainbow that will surely happen. Charlie, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you for taking the time to share through this webinar. Also, Mr. Hairul, thank you very much to making this event possible. And of course, thank to all the participants who took the time to take part in this webinar. Finally, for all of you, congratulations on following this webinar, and let's keep our spirit up so that we can be witnesses and actors of history, that human can get through this storm with their heads held high and become winner. Thank you very much. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you, Mr. Khalid.
You, Mr. Khalid.
Your speech is very motivated. Hopefully, it will be a very positive thing for this event. I will introduce our event today is going comprehensive of supply chains solution, especially for this pandemic things, which is will be presented by my good friend, Mr. Charlie Villasenor. Mr. Charlie is one of the famous person in supply chain in Asia. So I don't need to explain much about him, but what I know that his name is more popular than his president, I think, in supply chain in Philippines. So he will share the material and then probably not too fast because he will speak in English. And then if a question raised, you can write it or you can probably direct us. And then if needed, I will have to translate the question. And on the final of this presentation, it will be a question and answer. So hopefully this event will be a beneficial thing for all of us to share what being conducted in Philippines, which is having a problem with us, the same problem with us in this pandemic things. So Charlie will share. And as the introduction, Charlie is not new in Indonesian procurement community. He is many times to Indonesia and he shares many experience, and we some adopt like procurement agent he initiate in Philippines and we try to bring to Indonesia and other things. And also he is the instructor from ITC, which is also invited to Indonesia. I think that's my introduction, Charlie. You can start and then probably not too fast because not all Indonesians like in Philippines, the English is not so common with us, but I know all the people can understand it. So I give the time to Charlie. You can lead the agenda and then we'll respond to whatever necessary.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much, Pak Khairul, especially to Pak Khalid for inviting me to this educational session. This information or this type of webinar is not new to me. I have been invited by several countries and also by several companies to share to them our views about COVID-19 and the impact in supply chain. Before I actually start, I wanted to give you a little bit of a background about what we do as a company. We are the largest institute for supply chain, procurement, and logistics in Asia. So we're actually a training and a certification body recognized worldwide. We also have our services organization that provides consulting, training, services, and technology. We don't stop on training. We implement solutions for countries and for companies to excel and to be able to do better in supply chain, procurement, and logistics. Next, please. I divided my presentation into 3 major parts, or 4. I thought that it would be good for me to actually tell you and to align with you our impressions on what is really happening and how did COVID-19 and particularly the new world is evolving. Some people call it the new normal, but I call it the new world. I provide an insight into this based on many research that we have done in the last 5 months ago. We are actually going to tell you the impact of the supply chain to the economy. The second part is actually how to respond. I think this is the most important part, that some of you may be working in government. Some of you may be working in companies. all of these are going to be very important. As you can see in many televisions and news, the usual problem of many countries, it's not just about locking down countries or locking down cities. The problem is like they don't know the problem and they don't know the solution on the problem. Because people think this is about procurement, but this is not just about procurement. This is much more bigger than procurement. It talks about supply chain integration. So lockdowns are more of making it controlled, but providing the solution is into supply chain. I'm gonna talk a lot about that. I think I have an hour and a half to make a presentation to you. So I have a lot of information to share to you. But I also am going to provide, as much as possible, a great opportunity for all of you to ask questions. And hopefully I can answer all of them right now. The third part of my presentation is like, how are we actually responding? How are companies? This presentation will also not only provide you insights coming from our institute and from our company. We surveyed many companies and nations on what they're doing. So maybe it's important for you to see what other countries and other companies are actually doing in reigniting their supply chain. And a lot of our interaction hopefully will be as productive as could be. But I will ask Pak Khairul to stop me anytime. If I am speaking too fast, he can stop me and give me a signal. If he needs to translate any particular slide for me, he can say, Charlie, stop. I'm going to explain this slide so it becomes much more clearer.
Okay.
So Pak Khairul, feel free to stop me. I will be very open to actually slow down and to give you the chance to explain it in Bahasa Indonesia or in the language of Indonesia.
Okay.
Next, please. So let us see what's going on. It's good that Pak Khalid actually started, with the video and with his opening remarks about the winter thing. I can see that winter has arrived, but a natural disaster is coming into the winter. So it's more difficult right now because there's a lot of uncertainty. But even before COVID-19, we already have many problems in many countries. We've seen many natural hazards already. Before COVID-19 was announced, even in the Philippines, we have many volcanic eruptions that created problems for us. But even before COVID-19, we saw economic slowdown, trade wars, tensions between countries, tensions between the US and China. Can you just imagine what happened in the last 2 days between China and the US again? They have shut down their offices in Houston, and they have also shut down, in retaliation, their offices in China. And here we are trying to find out a solution on COVID-19. But I am very sorry to tell you, but the solution is not yet going to arrive. So the situation is getting from bad to worse. I am not here to scare you or become very pessimistic, but I want to give you the reality of what you have actually need to understand. When COVID came in December, I already went out on television, on ANCs and many television interviews. And I keep on saying that we are going to go into many recession, that we are going to have many infection also. I went many times in social media, and true enough, everything has been happening already. Next, please. Let's take a look what the pandemic is all about. The pandemic is all about putting everyone's health on risk. It's all about safety of people. But the first measure that countries would normally do, and they think they are addressing the problem, is through lockdowns, is through social or physical distancing or quarantines. I think the case of Indonesia and the Philippines is not too far away. We are a very close country together, and our experience is very much the same. But we are seeing problems in the availability of supplies, of test kits, of food, of hospital supplies. And not only that, we are seeing a lot of lacking doctors and nurses. Even doctors and nurses are getting tired and don't want to anymore get to hospitals because they are exposed, and some of them dies already because of COVID. The global trade and economy from recession is now happening. A lot of countries are moving into a lot of recession when the economy is not posting any positive growth. 3 recession will put the country in a depression. So it's going to be very difficult when countries are getting to be put on this particular area. Next, please. Let's take a look that even in our own region, ASEAN comprises of 600 million people, one of the most active, robust, rising regions in the world. Indonesia is now leading the infections. You know, maybe this is not even updated. This is actually, you know, changing every minute. We tried to guess as much as what's already available, and this is July 24. And this is the numbers that we are actually seeing in terms of active. So your country seems to be in a trouble. Our country as well seems to be in a trouble. We even have many active cases than Indonesia, as you can actually get to see it. But the total number of cases is quite high in your own country. And the trend seems to be going up and more. Next, please. When you have health cases, the first thing that happens is like companies are affected. And it's not only companies. We have seen many companies closing down. And I'm sure you've seen from restaurants to shopping malls. When these shopping malls, restaurants, airlines doesn't operate, their suppliers doesn't operate also. Neither do their customers are able to be active. We will see a lot of companies who is going to get into bankruptcy, and they will not even know that their companies are already bankrupt. They will spend all of the cash liquidity. The customers don't want face-to-face interaction. Their behavior is changing. I've seen many factories in the region closing down, not because of demand, but some of their employees are infected by coronavirus. So the factories cannot operate anymore. And in many cases, transportation restrictions, and more, suppliers are going to disappear. Because these suppliers are also facing the same problem that they're facing. So there's gonna be shortage of inventory, and in some areas, excess inventory because they cannot even transport it properly. Farmers are getting killed. They produce chickens, they produce agri-farms, but they are unable to ship it the way it used to be shipped to the markets, to the major cities, and to the major consumers. The countries are starting to put a lot of new laws, new regulations. And there's too much regulations already. And companies and businesses are affected. What I am really afraid is like in the next 30, 45, or 60 days, when people are hungry, people are going to react negatively. There will be issues on social unrest. People will go out of the street. People will do bad things like crimes. People will steal because they need to food or make food available to their families. So social unrest, peace and order is going to rise in the next few weeks or months, starting from now. It's gonna be very difficult because there's going to be chaos, and political uncertainty also is going to be tested. Next, please. So if you take a look at this, this is one of the latest study that shows like how is it looking in terms of the different activities or parts that are actually affected. The World Economic Forum found out that 7 of the top major issues or impact are all about economics. So I can tell you bravely, and I can tell you that all of the information that we are gathering out of our research does tell us that the economic outlook is not going to be as good enough. It's turning to bad from worse. What happens if there's no economy? If there's economy, there are not taxes. If there is no taxes, the government cannot support its people. Many governments, even in the US, are trying to open up businesses, not because it is safe, but because they want economy to move so that there are jobs and employment and salaries for the people. That's also the same in the Philippines. And I know it's also so much the same in Indonesia and in any other countries. If companies doesn't operate, there's not going to be revenues. No revenue, no salary. No salary, the next move is like companies are going to lay off many people in factories and many people in business organizations. Next, please. So if you take a look at the global supply chain, the red ones will actually tell you, the more red ones are the ones that buys a lot from China. Even us in the Philippines, we buy a lot of things in China. A big percentage, around 30 to 35%, around that is something that we source out of China. So if China gets into trouble, we think we also get into trouble as well. For example, in the Philippines, one of the biggest detergent soap manufacturer, they experience problem in getting good prices and supply for the raw materials. So we need to actually look at other countries beyond China who can actually provide it so they can create more production and the factory continues to be operational. But this is also a good important thing that we actually get to see. Next, please. When we take a look outside of China, there are also winners that actually gets to achieve benefits. One of the things that we saw was Indonesia. In fact, we were so envious about this news. When we read this news early this month, me being part of the CEO Association of the Philippines, we told ourselves that Indonesia is very lucky. We told ourselves that Philippines is not so lucky than Indonesia. Because what we see in the news is like companies are rethinking about where to put their factories, what to make their supply chains be reliant. We saw that US companies, other Asian companies were relocating their factories out of China. And a good number of this is going to be in Indonesia. We were waiting for an announcement if there is gonna be any company going to relocate to the Philippines. I can tell you that we haven't heard that announcement until today. So I could say that this is also a good opportunity for Indonesia to capitalize on and to prepare on. Of course, the COVID-19 is going to be there, but how can Indonesia really also take this into their own advantage? So there seems to be an opportunity here for Indonesia when companies are relocating to your countries, to your country. Next, please. Let's take a look, because when I said China, it's not only China that is actually affected. We've actually seen that there are many countries and many companies whose production performance is below 50% already. I can tell you that even multinational companies operating in your respective countries are not operating 100% because of the demand, because of the logistics concerns, because of the availability of raw materials. But it's not only looking into the suppliers, not only looking at the suppliers, it's also looking at the suppliers of their suppliers. Meaning to say, if you're only looking at the status of your suppliers, you should also be looking at the status of the suppliers of your suppliers. If you're buying medical gloves, you should not be concerned about the supplier of medical gloves. You should be concerned about the supplier of the rubber that sells their rubber to the manufacturer of the rubber gloves. And down the road, you should be able to see the different suppliers, tiers, as we normally call it. We are starting to see that the lead times are happening. It used to be before COVID-19, we say that JIT is good, just in time. But one of the most popular thing right now is not anymore just in time. Very popular best practice nowadays for companies and for countries is to do JIC, just in case. Countries and companies are creating more stocks and inventory because they see that the demand is increasing, especially for essential items. When companies get to find problems securing materials, it creates what we call a bullwhip effect. You know, a bullwhip effect indicates that if a company is affected, many companies who are their customers, many companies who are their suppliers are also going to be affected. So it's not only going to become one bullwhip effect, it's going to create massive bullwhip effect. And when there is massive bullwhip effect, there's gonna be massive companies that could probably slow down and eventually shut down. So where do we see this thing going forward? We have seen many companies trying to reconfigure and trying to redesign their supply chain. They're looking at best practices. They're looking at managing the greatest thing of all, which is supply risk. Next, please. The next slide will actually tell you about what is actually within the end-to-end supply chain. We normally say that we plan, source, and move, and manufacture also. But we are actually managing three areas here. We're managing physical flow, information flow, and cash flow for company. Even government have to manage their own cash flow. So when I say, and we in PASIA suggest that countries and companies needs to do better supply chain, it's not only getting to have better supply chain, but their supply chain has to be resilient so that their supply chain can recover. There are a lot of best practices available in plan area, or what we call supply chain planning. I will discuss this later on, but there's also a lot of best practices in procurement. You know, companies are starting to do strategic initiatives. And there's a lot of things that can be done in the logistics arena as well. I will give you exactly examples later on and what companies are also doing on this particular area. Next, please. But supply chain is going to be the most important thing in many business and nations right now. Nations are going to compete not only about their economy. Nations are going to compete on their supply chain. In the same way as companies are not going to compete on simply products or services. Companies are not going to compete just alone with their product or services. Companies are going to compete now on their supply chain. You know, e-commerce is going to take a lot of opportunity also in terms of growth. And that is part of supply chain management. Next, please. I want to show this slide because it actually tells countries, it actually tells companies that if you don't fix your supply chain properly, everything from purchasing, inbound logistics, manufacturing, outbound, inventory, capital, and customer services, if you don't do this properly, synchronize it, it's going to, affect the way you deliver your services to the people, and it's also going to deliver the profit that you want for your company. So for companies, they are going to be more under pressure if they don't actually create focus now on the supply chain. Next, please. Before, they only understand supply chain importance when materials like PPEs or test kits doesn't arrive. Before COVID, not a lot of people appreciated supply chain. But when COVID arrived, and the most important thing to do is to survive, is to have test kits, PPEs, hospitals, doctors and nurses, they started to say that supply chain is important. Supply chain before wants to cut costs. But right now, supply chain is more important for managing risk because there are so many risks. Indonesia may have a lot of people. Indonesia may have a lot of money. But if Indonesia doesn't have the vaccine, Indonesia is in trouble. If Indonesia doesn't have enough doctors, hospitals, and frontliners, there's going to be a problem. If you don't have PPEs, test kits, medical supplies, then you will have a problem. So very important now, the thing that is being addressed by companies is their supply chain risk management. They want to make sure that there is good assurance of supply. It has the right quality, service, and cost. So it has to be prioritized what's more important nowadays. Next, please. I will share with you in this slide what our companies and countries are experiencing. Many companies doesn't work properly together, even with their own existing team inside the company. And that is also true for governments and for countries and nations. There's a lot of silo. They are all working independently with one another. They don't use enough data to base their action on. They don't even have a supply chain leader in company. They may have a procurement leader, but it doesn't mean to say that they have a supply chain leader. In many countries that we have seen, there is a president of the country. But the most important part is supply chain execution. But we have not seen a country who has appointed a supply chain leader or a supply chain Caesar who is going to organize, plan, and execute what is good for the company. The demand creates so much pressure, and they cannot know how to react on the demand by making the available supply aligned to the demand. The other problem is about procurement. Not only is it about corruption happening in many countries. In many countries, in spite of pandemic, in spite of people dying, there are still a lot of corrupt people taking advantage of procurement. They are not implementing best practices. And there's also a great chance that suppliers may shut down. And when suppliers shut down, it's not easy to open up again these companies. The other thing also is like they want to put more controls on the road, more checkpoints. But more and more people that are managing this are coming from military who do not have good background on distribution planning, in supply chain planning, or logistics planning. Military is good, but it doesn't mean to say that it's the only solution. It requires appropriate set of skills for many countries and for many companies as well. If countries and companies have not done and improved supply chain in the last 5 months, you are already so delayed, and there will be more people who will continue to die simply because countries are unprepared to control the virus. Because the way to control the virus is to make sure that there is adequate doctors, nurses, materials, and services that needs to go to the health issues of the company. There is also a need to make sure that there is adequate supply for essential items, to ensure there is food, and to ensure that companies could still operate and support bigger companies. Supporting SMEs is very important, and government role here is vital. If you cannot support the small, medium enterprises, you will never be able to support the big companies of your country, because they need the SMEs to support them to conduct their own business. Next, please. So what are we actually seeing here? I always say that we are now facing a horrendous, a very tremendous impact that's not only going to affect 1 or 2 cities, it's going to create an impact all throughout the world. And this is going to resonate across the entire global ecosystem, because it's like a domino effect. You know, you've seen and played domino. If one block is down, it will create more blocks to be crushed or put down, because the economics and the financial capabilities of these companies, including countries, does not allow them to survive. I think there's going to be more companies who's going to combine. And these companies will find out that they are already bankrupt, and they don't even know that they are already bankrupt. I have a lot of friends who have lost their jobs. Surprisingly, they didn't expect that their company is going to lay them off. And more companies are going to do that in the next 3 months, all throughout the whole year. This is important. People ask me what's going to happen about globalization. Personally, I think globalization will slow down. Not only it will slow down, but countries will want to buy from their own country itself. They want to be self-sufficient. And that is okay. If countries can produce more medical supplies, that's good. If they have their own food, that's also good. But one of the things that I've read and I've always seen, the growing trend toward nationalism will surely impact supply chains. Nationalism, to what I've read and understood, has never been a positive force for business or for world peace. By being so nationalistic, there tends to be a position of aggression against each country. And when countries are protecting their country alone and not sharing its resources, there's going to be a more bigger problem than COVID. Because the problem that's about to happen is about the problem or world peace. What do I mean by this? there could be wars, there could be economic difficulties, and there could be more death ahead of us. Countries like Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, the Philippines have been experiencing great growth. But to what I'm seeing, we are going to get suppressed in the next 2 to 3 years. As American companies or big multinational companies withdraw a lot of the things that they have offshored or outsourced to their own particular homeland. As companies move out their supply chains from China, it could also be an opportunity, as I've said, just like a while ago, for other neighboring countries like Indonesia to take advantage of that. So what is next, please? So given this, what are we seeing ahead? We see that there are a few things that we should be aware as we manage our country. Distance is back, physical distance. More and more companies are going to move back. And can you just imagine, companies are already permanently making decisions to operate without any office. We have, many employees also. We cut down the employees that they all have to go and work from home already. Companies like Fujitsu, like Siemens, they're all declaring that they will permanently have work from home, all of their employees. Resilience and efficiency is going to become more important for companies. We are all moving now to digital commerce, digital medicine, and automation. You can be sure that even here in Indonesia, there's gonna be new rules and regulations. There's gonna be new government intervention. In our own country, we are seeing more laws being passed right now. And these are big laws that impacts security and comfort of its citizens. The market positions are changing. Consumer behavior. Banking is going to be put into a test. Even in banks alone, they have also a lot of COVID cases in some of them. Next, please. So what are we facing here? The new reality is what we probably have seen. We call it VUCA. It's very volatile, very uncertain. It's the problems that we are facing right now are so complex. It's all integrated to each other. And it's so ambiguous. We don't know how clear the problem is and how clear our solutions going to be. It requires 4 things coming from the government. The government has to have a supply chain vision. They have to have an understanding what are the different perspectives. They have to be very clear on what they are addressing. And the new name of the game for governments and nations is all about agility. How fast can you react to the problem? How fast is innovation? And how fast is decision making? Next, please. So I hope that introduction gives you a little bit of an overview on how we see things going forward. But I want to provide more solutions because we have so much problem to actually address. This problem, COVID, is not going to go away in the next 18 months. That's a very strong statement, isn't it? I'm putting my reputation here. If people think that we will be okay by the end of the year, I really don't think so, even next year. So we have to make sure that we have so much solutions and a good direction to undertake. Next, please. So we are facing a new war. We are basically in a war now, isn't it? The enemy is somebody that we cannot see. The enemy is something that comes to us and kill us without us knowing that we're getting killed already. So what should we do? If we are into a war, we have to have our strategy to win the war, or at least minimize the impacts of the war. Countries and governments has to have a strong strategy. If Indonesia has done initiatives, and if Indonesia still have rising infections on COVID, maybe the current strategy may not be working well. Maybe a new strategy is needed and needs to be analyzed. And I always see this in 3 areas. Strategies requires a review on the leadership and the people who are involved in solving the problem. The second thing is like, are their practices proven? Do they have the right processes? Or they are all noise? Or they are all plans that doesn't get to be implemented? Are they able to see their performance? Do they have the right partners to help them? Because government and companies are never good in supply chain. Companies are not good in supply chain, a lot of them. How much more is the government? The government cannot even define what a supply chain is. They cannot even explain what a supply chain entails. Because countries and the world has left supply chains as simply a small importance for their survival and for their success. So now everybody looks into supply chain as most important. But let me share to you, next please, what are the strategies needed that they can implement? Well, this is what companies are doing. Later on, I will tell you what government can potentially do as well. Well, the most important thing for companies or for government offices is to ensure, first and foremost, the health and the well-being of their employees. How many months have we been in COVID? Do they have a specific supply chain crisis management team? Is there a set of people who has identified the problem and has solved the problem? Are they implementing what we call sales and operations planning, or what we call integrated business management? What is this? Sales and operations planning for companies should look at what they should be doing in maximizing profitability or survival for the government for periods of 1 to 6 months, 6 to 18 months, and 18 to 36 months. They have to see whether they're going to perform, survive, or if they are going to perish or close the company. As we speak right now, I know many companies closing their companies. But since supply chain was not given importance, this is the best time to train and reinforce in terms of educating the people involved in solving the crisis for the company and for the government. Training and capacity building is more important, but the trainings has to be appropriate for COVID-19 supply chain. Companies must have, by this time, a business continuity plan. We saw a company where one of the purchasing employees got COVID and infected a lot of other employees. Can you just imagine if your procurement department employees are affected or infected, who is going to bring in the materials for you for the factory to operate? And what is your business continuity plan for this? More companies has to eliminate manual paperwork. We are now all shifting to digitalization, using more technology. But one of the things that we wanted to reinforce is like many companies doesn't have the expertise or the technology. So if companies doesn't have this, this is the greatest moment to outsource. But sometimes outsource is a very strong word, right? Nobody wants to be outsourced because they lose their jobs. But what companies are doing right now is to out-task, give a portion of the activity to a third-party provider. In some of your companies, you have outsourced maybe logistics. You may have outsourced some parts of your HR. You may have outsourced payroll. Those things really needs to be outsourced. But you also have to be open that some areas of supply chain, procurement, and logistics can also be outsourced, or what we call augmentation, to help you out carry that thing that is not core for your operations. Next, please. So if that is the way companies could potentially get a look on how, let's also talk about what can government do? What can government undertake? Because the government is lost. The government is not good in supply chain. The government is good in collecting taxes. But governments should understand that there are 3 important moves that they need to do in order for the government and nations to save lives, to maintain peace and order, and keep the economy moving. And this is probably the most important slide that I can share to you this afternoon. First and foremost is that you should have a team of people working together to understand every aspect of demand. What do I mean by demand? How many hospitals, how many people do you have? How is the trend increasing? How many surgical needles do you have? How many PPEs do you need? And how many suppliers are available to meet that demand? Make sure that this information is into a dashboard. The data has to be having a high level of integrity and transparency. Governments are very good in announcing how many people are sick and dead. But governments are not very good in announcing what they need in terms of number of doctors, how many PPEs, how many test kits do they need, and at what time do they need it. Governments has the responsibility to give transparent information to the people. Identify also all of the demand and supply points. Is this a city? Is this a local government unit? How many hospitals? Who are the food suppliers? How many drugstores are available? Who could supply the medicines that is actually needed? Those things has to be put in place because government has to help out in trying to see how the replenishment and forecasting system should be enabled for them to understand what is needed. Maybe the government has to work closely with private organizations who could help them put this thing together. The supply chain planning and data analytics team is most important. If you don't have any supply chain visibility, the country is running blind on how to solve the problem of COVID-19 virus on a timely basis. The government, the hospitals, and the private sector must coordinate the information that they have. They should be able to publish inventory shortages. Make sure that you know what is actually lacking. Do you lack doctors, or do you lack PPEs, or do you lack test kits? What are the capacity constraints? The second portion of thing that they can also do is to implement strategic procurement. Just like in companies, when they do strategic procurement, it's very different. Buying PPEs, buying test kits is easy. But you have to do more than this. You have to implement what we call strategic sourcing. Strategic sourcing is a rigorous process that is undertaken to achieve the most advantageous deals for the country or for the company. And focus first on health requirements that you need to survive. Second thing is focus on food security. And third is the essential items that is actually needed. There's a significant opportunity to consolidate the spend. If there is actually, in the Philippines, we are already experiencing hospitals overflowing with patients. They cannot anymore accept patients. I don't know how it is in Indonesia, but if that is the case, we suggest that buildings has to be reconfigured or repurposed to make them health stations or hospitals. They have to think of outside of the box to create the materials and the doctors, nurses that they need to be available. Focus on managing risk of the supply chain and ensure that you are using digitalization, such as electronic procurement and electronic marketplaces, using procurement agents as best practice. And the third thing is to optimize logistics. Make sure that you unblock the different hurdles to be able to create a seamless flow of deliveries of items. So take a look at this, implement e-logistics, and deploy programs. The next biggest crisis for countries that I see in the supply chain is food safety and security. The COVID-19 virus will go to the trucks. They will go to the packaging materials of the food that we're going to eat. They are not going to go to the food, but it's going to get close to you on the packaging of the materials that you get from the deliveries of the food that you take in. This is what we call infection vectors. It will get closer to you and to your homes and to your family. So more and more, the government has to institutionalize program to be able to address this and to make sure that on the third item, that when vaccine is available, the country like Indonesia is prepared on what I call vaccine supply chain immunization program. Because getting vaccine from overseas and delivering it to the smallest town in Indonesia has to be handled scientifically and carefully, because there is very stringent requirements for moving vaccine and immunization and getting it in the right quality to the patient. Next, please. So, create a supply chain crisis management team is very important for government. Most often, you can be helped through virtual teams. We are helping them through teleconsulting as well. Take a look at documenting business critical functions. Very important to prioritize. But one thing that your country and your people could do is getting trained also, because training is going to be very important as they move along. Next, please. Good communications is critical also in a pandemic. Make sure that the stakeholders, the government, or the people working in a company are all aligned. There has to be a good interconnection with those very important, particularly with the suppliers who's going to help you out. Regular meetings are very important. Get to be clear and cordial. I saw one company who requested all of their suppliers to actually give them 10% discount. All of the suppliers are also having a bad time. The suppliers did not give any discount. And the company got into more trouble. So it's important that suppliers has to be taken care of properly. You need to be cordial, to be good and nice to your suppliers. You need to be collaborative. And you also need to be patient. You cannot squeeze your suppliers because even them are already hard-pressed on their business as well. So make sure that you communicate properly. And one way of doing this is to use third-party procurement agents or third-party procurement services provider to help you in some aspects of what you do to undertake. Example of this is supplier assessments. if you are still the one looking at supplier assessments or accreditation, probably this is an area that you want to outtask or outsource to a company who does it in a more expert way. Next, please. So it's very important for the crisis management team to be able to do a short-term defense, meaning to say if countries or companies have realized that they have now a problem on supply chain, make sure that they have a plan of action for the first 6 months. There has to be a leader, single point of leader, who has to protect safety, run micro and macroeconomic review based on P&L, profit and loss statements, and to keep the operations going. The supply chain has to work very closely with the CEO today, more than ever. And countries and companies has to have a plan also to mitigate it for the next 6 to 18 months. They need to protect their people for the government, but they also, for the companies, they also need to protect the revenues. They need to stabilize their supply chain within 6 to 18 months. They have to understand the new economy because things will not go back to its normal shape. Do you think that we're just going to go back to our offices and be business as usual? I don't think so. I think many companies or employees will never go back to their offices already. So what is the next thing to do? Companies and nations and governments has to have a plan for the next 3 years, 18 to 36 months. This has to show a good amount of budget. They have to show the new economy and how it's going to operate and how their company is going to operate as well. Next, please. There are many best practices for pandemic supply chains. A lot of them. I'm not going to do it because there's so much of them to explain here. But companies should be able to assess about their companies on how they will perform, not yesterday, but in the future. They have to look at the way they conduct themselves in inventory management, forecasting, demand and supply management. They have to take a look on how they're going to reconfigure the way they're going to do procurement for their company, as well as logistics. You can imagine here that technology is going to move very fast. And the one who is actually going to be able to stabilize will get more opportunity to take advantage of the situation. I can foresee that a lot of things in the logistics area will be Uberized. When I say Uberized, many logistics companies are going to be on a platform. Just like riding on a taxi, it's like using Uber or what have you in Indonesia. It's going to happen also for warehouses and logistics providers also. There's going to be a lot of automation going to happen. Next, please. So when I say that companies have to have a plan for 1 to 6 months, 16 to 18 to 36, these are a few tips and guidelines that they can actually use to create and implement. I'm not going to go to all of the details. We don't have the time. But maybe in the next future sections or opportunities, I will have to explain everything that they should be able to do. But these materials are available for those who have actually registered properly and are paying for this particular webinar. Next, please. So let me share with you a business case. This company is one of the biggest company. They are in consumer goods company. They have 19,000 employees and they operate in 30 countries, including Indonesia. What they have done first is they created a task force immediately when they saw the lockdowns were happening. They organized a management level committee that will set the direction. They look immediately into their capacity and constraints. They look at all of the single or stock keeping units that they are selling. You know, I read today that even Coca-Cola is rationalizing their SKUs. They cannot be selling so many varieties. If they want to survive, they need to simplify their supply chain. This company look at their backlog, the demand, and they actually create several new ways of addressing those problems. But more importantly, what they did, provided feedback closely to their team leaders or management of the company. Escalation to management of the problems and taking action is most important. Next, please. Next, please. So this is also an example. This is a big conglomerate. They are also in Indonesia, but they do operate in 14 countries, and they actually have a lot of thousands of employees. This is what their experience was. They established a centralized cost board. They tried to review all of their expenses and stop all non-critical expense. They reviewed all of their contracts to see if they have any particular items to fix. They try to standardize and simplify because people are not anymore working in the company or offices. They are now working from home. They look at everything that they can cost control. You know, they were actually surprised that they found out that their employees did not want to come and report to the office anymore. They also found out that it's very difficult that this company will have to provide transportation and even a place to sleep for their employees because they don't want to go back home. They need to be quarantined and they want to just work. They want to go home once a month. Next, please. So there are different challenges that they face. So these are some of the things that we can share with you on what you can do also with your procurement as an example. You need to assess all of your suppliers as frequently as possible. The reason is because your suppliers may not be available anymore because they may be bankrupt or they don't have any more supply to provide you. You need to make sure that when you're buying medical supplies, you look at where they're coming from. Because there are some countries who are stopping shipments of essential items. So you should know this. You can start doing more virtual negotiations. You have to listen to more experts who are very good in understanding the scenario and providing the potential solution. So advance quickly on digitalization of your procurement is another example of action that you can do now because it will be needed also in the future. You cannot be accepting paper codes or paper documents because paper carries virus or COVID-19. Next, please. So there's going to be a lot of changes in the logistics, as I've said. In the logistics arena, this is normally taken for granted, but supply chain is not efficient if the item doesn't receive by the people or the warehouse of the company. So we see a lot more of systems like warehousing, transportation, cloud-based going to actually be available. Next, please. So technology is going to run more, including replacing people. And it used to be that companies doesn't want to use technology because it will replace people. They were hesitant. But we can see that more companies right now wants to deploy artificial intelligence as an example, or robotics. Because this robotics doesn't get sick. This robotics doesn't get infected by virus. And this robotic doesn't complain or get absences for the company. So things will really change a lot in the way we conduct our supply chain. Next, please. So very important on this slide before I close on some of the solutions, like you may have all of the skills, the good process, and the technology. But more importantly, what is needed to keep the nation going forward is integrity, transparency, and good governance. You should train and remind people to become fair, open, honest, with good ethics and integrity. Because people and some other parties are taking advantage because it is in supply chain where the money exists. And if you have different problems and you cannot hold this, then you actually get some problems going forward. Next, please. I am seeing some of the questions. I'm going to answer them in a short while. So please make sure you type your questions, and later on I will surely answer them as much as possible. Thank you. So next, please. So how can companies reignite? What are we doing in PASIA? Working with KM partners. So we actually have several companies. We have a procurement agent company, which we call Transprocure Sourcing Hub. We have a business process outsourcing company. We have a supply chain shared services company, all helping each other and helping our institute. So we are a membership-based organization. So we have we have 50 to 60,000 members in the area of supply chain, procurement, and logistics all across Asia and the world. Next, please. So we are leading this, and these are all of the services that we also do. It's not my intention to advertise, but these are part and parcel of the solutions that is necessary to provide to countries, nations, and companies so that they could tap on this expertise. Because this expertise and these solutions is not always available. Supply chain is not about HR or IT or audit, where there are so many providers. We are the only company in Asia doing a complete end-to-end consulting, services, training, and technology implementation across supply chain, procurement, and logistics. So it's our intention to show that these are best practices that is already being done in Indonesia, or maybe could be augmented or further be reinforced. Next, please. We also found ourselves that when we saw the pandemic happening, we developed a program, a proven program on how to help countries. And countries can only survive if they have a national pandemic supply chain program, which is owned and trademarked by us. So this word is exclusive to PASIA, because we have actually created the 3 modules here on how countries can implement supply chain planning, sourcing, and optimizing their logistics network. Next, please. So even us, we do a lot of face-to-face training around the world. We do a lot of face-to-face consulting. But in the last 5 months, all about consulting is happening very successfully through teleconsulting. We are just like doctors doing telemedicine, but we deliver our work and our advice and our training using Zoom or whatever available means. Our training programs are all online also. It can be done online with an instructor or online without any instructor. And we provide all of these services electronically with our back office. And the technologies that we use are all here. They are all the most successful technologies when it comes to supply chain planning, procurement, and logistics. And we are going to show more artificial intelligence and those types of technology also to Indonesia as well. Next, please. So these are just some of the clients. I'm not going to explain more, but we have certainly have worked with some Indonesian clients also. Next, please. And this is our team and management team. The reason why I'm sharing this, because you have to be confident that the partner that you're working for really has the right people that are experienced to deliver the services. Not all of them are young, but they have some really good experience. Next, please. Our response to COVID-19 when it comes to training is like we have put a lot of them on online learning also. And we can also provide instructors, live instructors that's going to facilitate training as well. As an example, next please. We provide our online instructor-led. We call it our OIL program. So we have an instructor that's going to train half-day sessions in a day for consecutive, maybe 6 sessions or 4 sessions, to be able to allow you to actually get specific trainings on those 3 areas. And if you complete it, we are going to give you a certified integrated supply chain professional certification that is recognized globally. So these are all online, but very interactive because there's still a professor or a trainer using technology classrooms. Next, please. And this is an example of no trainer, but this is very interactive. It teaches you about strategic sourcing process, category management, negotiations. There is no trainer here, but this is very interactive because you cannot move to the next module if you did not understand or answer correctly the first module. But they will explain to you why your answer is correct or why your answer is wrong. So this is available to thousands immediately of employees if they want, or this can also be achieved by a single employee who just wanted to enroll a specific course like negotiations or strategic sourcing or price and cost analysis. Next, please. Taking this training is going to lead towards certification also. We are doing this especially for companies who are in various locations because their procurement people may be in different cities or different countries. So we provide a roadmap to build what we call supply chain academies as well going forward. So we create this roadmap to be able to put in place the programs specific for the country or for the nation or for the company. Next, please. This is a very important, this is our procurement agent services. So as I mentioned, one detergent company in the Philippines needed suppliers of raw materials. Where did you think we were able to find the raw materials? We found the supplier in Indonesia. And Indonesia have done their first shipment. It arrived today. And we will be continuing buying from an Indonesian supplier for this particular need. So we act as a company that looks for suppliers. Maybe Indonesian companies need suppliers overseas, and we can be tapped to be able to source for suppliers and facilitate those suppliers to be introduced to Indonesian companies or even to the Indonesian government as well. Next, please. And we provide a supplier assessment and accreditation service to many companies also. This is very important because, as I said, many companies and suppliers are getting to be bankrupt or having difficulty operationally. Maybe their company has a COVID infection or financial problem. We will be able to know that also, given the questions. And sometimes this is more timely in terms of information. Next, please. So we also provide more and more electronic programs. If you are doing bids for your purchase requirements, we can do electronic bidding or electronic sourcing services also. So we can demonstrate this, but I'm sure some of you are knowledgeable about this already or are already implementing this. But if you need something that is more cost effective, you don't have to invest on anything, just use it or rent it for a day or for one transaction. We could make this available to your company. Next, please. So we are also going to announce to you at the end of this week that we are setting up the largest business-to-business e-procurement marketplace in Asia. And we are also going to introduce this to Indonesia so that suppliers within ASEAN region can all be put into a single e-marketplace platform. So we are going to provide digital solutions in supply chain planning, procurement, and logistics. But we are going to build the largest e-catalog and supplier portal in Asia for companies and for governments and nations to be able to use. It's also very important that for those companies or countries who have their e-procurement already, they can still keep their e-procurement and they can still use our electronic catalogs so that they could also see the products and buy from overseas suppliers as well. So we can integrate with the existing e-procurement system. Next, please. So this is how it looks like for those who doesn't still have e-procurement or e-marketplace. We have the features and the functions. We can explain this in more detail if anybody would like. Our contact numbers will be provided later on, or you can just email us at our website. So it's really making supply chain agile, fast, especially in COVID-19 and in the new normal. Next, please. So this is how the largest B2B ASEAN procurement marketplace going to have. It's going to have all of the indirect spend, e-bidding, supplier risk assessment, strategic sourcing as a service, and the procure-to-pay e-marketplace that is going to be available as well. So this is very integrated and robust, and we hope to bring a lot of Indonesian suppliers also to be able to sell into our e-marketplace. And hopefully we could get Indonesian government or even companies to become buyers from this particular marketplace as well. Next, please. The good thing about this, because there's no investment required, our model is very competitive. We have what we see is like no capital investment, pay as you use, or pay as you use the service of this particular marketplace. That goes both ways for the suppliers and the buyers as well. The reason why we're so excited about this, because this is Amazon-like, Amazon type of buying. We don't want to use the old e-procurement system of having static catalogs or very difficult to use. This system has to be very much like the experience of buying at work and buying at home the same, by using Amazon-like features and functions and technology. Next, please. So we are also going to roll this out by industry because we think that all of the hospitals in Indonesia potentially could come and work with us, or food, beverage, depending on the industry, to collaborate in a much more bigger e-marketplace as well. Next, please. So we are all now moving into the shared economy. And this is one of my last slides. I think we're just coming on time for my last 5 minutes. We have been experiencing tremendous pressure. Last year, our company, last November, we went into our strategic planning. So all of these employees developed a new corporate goal. And I was surprised that the employees said that our corporate goal was not about simply procurement, supply chain, or logistics. And I was bothered by that. But they said our corporate goal is to honor our God in all of the works we do. And our mission is to make our place the most successful company in supply chain, procurement, and logistics. And our vision is to make it the most exciting and most rewarding place to be. I'm sharing this because countries and governments and companies are going to be stressed out. But we cannot deny ourselves in maintaining our values, our integrity in our operations. This is very important, not only for employees, but more important for the leaders of countries, that they have to have all of the highest integrity. And this is part of the training that needs to be given for many employees, including top and senior government or company officials as well. Next, please. In summary, next, please. In summary, all I can say is like, you know, the COVID-19 was a big shock to everybody. It has changed the way we are now behaving in supply chain. But the only way to actually move forward here is to be agile, be fast, be adaptive, and be resilient. In the next 2 to 3 years, I think we are going to face many risks. Maybe there's going to be a new virus again. I hope not. Or maybe a natural disaster that normally comes to countries like Indonesia or the Philippines. I hope not. But more than ever, we need more ethics. We need more good practices and technology. This is the right time to recalibrate. If the measures or the actions of countries is not working, we need to recalibrate that. We need to find out what's not working and what will work. Because this is not only for the pandemic. Even if we are outside of the pandemic or this one is finished already, we need to do things properly. And we hear from KM Partners and PASIA is here to actually be able to provide you insights or whatever way that we could actually help to do and assist you in all of these areas. Next, please. Or there's going to be a Q&A later on. So later on, I'm going to turn this thing on to Khairul. But next, please. I wanted to give to you our contact details. Just in case there's any follow-through, you can force it to KM Partners, to the team of Khalid and Khairul. But I'm very much on LinkedIn. I use a lot of LinkedIn. We have several Facebook and Twitter accounts and social media. We have our WhatsApp also. And just in case you want to ask anything, inquire anything, we have our emails. We want to make sure that we in the supply chain profession should never give up. Because the greatest solution of the COVID is not military lockdown. It's not, you know, just doing the normal thing. The greatest enabler here, and the two things that can only survive us here, is the vaccine, right? If it arrives. Hopefully it arrives on time, that we are still alive. And the only time that it will arrive if we have good supply chain management. So let's focus on having a really good strategy and execution for supply chain management. I'm very much on time, Khairul. I can see my clock, very much on time, not a minute late, not a minute early. So I can see many questions also and many comments particularly. So you probably have seen all of them. I still need to read it myself. But I'm sure there's gonna be clarifications because I was in English. I think you could help me translate and you know, give the right response to the televiewers or to the attendees. And I really like to thank you. I know you should be resting on a Saturday, but you're doing your part in helping your country and your company also by listening to this webinar, because this type of webinar is not always available. Khairul chased me for this for a long time to deliver this to you this afternoon. I like to thank Khairul and Khalid again and all of you for giving me this opportunity to reconnect and do my share to Indonesia. Terima kasih. I will say kami tidak akan. I don't know if it's correct, but that's what I wanted to share to all of you. Khairul, over to you, and please be good to me so that I can
Thank you, Charlie. Yes, thank you, Charlie. Very good time. You manage the time. In the contract, you do perfect time. Okay, I think now you see the question. You can see directly, probably you can answer the question one by one. Or Pak Khalid, is it a time if the participant want to ask directly?
Yes, they can ask directly, or maybe you can read the question and answer first. There are 7 questions.
Maybe I will read the question, and why don't I answer it one by one? Will that be okay?
I think it's better like that. So you read the question and then you answer it. So if I need to translate it a little bit. I will translate.
Then after that, Khairul could translate for every item or give additional inputs on what I've said.
Yes, no
so
problem.
I'll thank you, Atas Yuda, for this question. What about the policy of government of Manila? Had they make a centralized policy or just laid it to local government? In the beginning, we have an interagency task force, IATF. All of the power was given to Manila. But when the situation could not improve, they gave it that the problem is now going to be handled by the local government. But still the problem cannot be solved. So they're still scratching their heads and finding out what is the best solution. But I can tell you that all of the people that is in the headquarters, government of Manila, there are more generals than supply chain professionals. So it's all about lockdowns. It's about curfews. It's about, catching people who doesn't have masks. But we haven't, I'm sorry to say, but we haven't seen a good supply chain plan for this. We are presenting this on Tuesday also to the CEO Association of the Philippines. So we will see if this will get more attention. I hope I was able to answer the question. Khairul.
Yeah. I think Pak Atas Yuda can understand what Charlie means. Ya.
Okay.
Ini mulai tapi itu juga tidak solve the problem. Okay, I think it's clear, Mr. Charlie. I think the situation is almost the same with Indonesia, and then now all central and local government is work together to resolve it.
What I see, Khairul, is like there is a plan on identifying the sick people, but there is no supply chain plan to ensure that we have adequate supply of doctors or hospitals or materials, and that is very much needed to be able to stop the spread of the virus.
Yeah.
That's our problem.
Yeah, I think it's almost the same also here when this pandemic is coming. The supply demand of the medical supplies is very unpredicted. So the price is going up and everything. We have suggested to the government to have a centralized marketplace just for this emergency situation, but it's not running yet. Mr. Khalid is one of the team there. So we do hope that all the hospital can put the requirement on the marketplace for their requisition, and then we sourcing to the correct way, not too many level of people. Starting running and it's not fully run yet, because the price over Indonesia for no control.
Yeah.
So we try to source from the principal and then put it on the emergency. We call it Sirat, and then all the hospital can access and see the price from at least the second hand or direct from the principal, so we can manage the price. That's what being what do you call it? Being used or being developed now in Indonesia just for the sourcing of the medical supplies for this pandemic.
Yes.
I don't know what's your experience there. Yes, Charlie.
Yeah, my experience, there's no supply chain plan in the country. And we are very poor in coordinating this. And I don't think we even know what the problem is. We don't have enough visibility of what needs to be fulfilled. So supply chain visibility is very important as I see it. but I don't think we are there. We are firefighting. We are not saving the whole house to be burned. Just firefighting all the time.
Yeah.
And since there's no plan, I don't think our COVID-19 infections are going to slow down. It will even increase in an accelerated way. We are already very scared here, Kairul, honestly. We are scared, you know, because we don't see that the plan is working.
Yeah, I think you can see the result on your charts that we are number one, you are number two. I think the problem is almost the same, is how you manage your supply chains. This is the issue, the integration, internal and external parties in the government. So I think this material, we have to put it in the correct way to the correct people in decision making, so they know how to coordinate actually. So they work not silo, but they work with one objective. I think that's the challenge of what we can suggest to the government or to the team who handle this COVID integration and coordination in the supply chain. And
yes, maybe I'll take the second question so that we can answer all of the questions.
Yeah.
The Indonesia is part of the AFTA and EFTA, yes, conventions.
Yeah,
but
I think
economic growth in the manufacturing sector is declining. What is your solution? Yeah, I think there are two parts here. The question is very good. I think even without consideration of AFTA or EFTA, the entire economy, particularly manufacturing, are all going down because there's no consumption. But there are basic necessities also that needs to be produced. So for us, as an example, when we were trying to source in Korea and India, we found out that the best source of supply is Indonesia, because we are having common economic availments or what you call this, available concessions because of AFTA and EFTA. So our solution here is to buy more within the ASEAN region so that we could actually take advantage of the benefits. But, you know, I see that countries are starting to do it more on their own respective country. They want to produce inside also because they want to secure supply as an example also. I think companies within ASEAN will marry with each other. The Indonesian companies may come to the Philippines. Philippine companies may go and co-invest because I think it's a great opportunity because we're geographically and culturally aligned to be able to collaborate more. I think the ASEAN integration should really play an important part on this as well. Because we are going to be treated not so well by the Western world, as I can see it already. So we need to help each other within our own Asian context.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah,
yeah. I think it's quite okay. Your answer. I think if we can go.
Next question by Ranga Utama. Currently, Singapore and Korea have experienced an economic recession. Yeah. Do you think that will spread to Indonesia? What can we really do to prevent or prepare for an economic recession? I think it's going to spread to Indonesia. If the COVID-19 is not going to be addressed with the vaccine, I think you are not insulated. First and foremost, if it will actually depend on the elections that is coming in the big countries, and if the current leadership of those countries are not for globalization, our economy in Asia will be significantly impacted. So we are hoping that the leaders that will be elected on the upcoming elections are going to become pro-globalization to be able to allow us to benefit from it also. But we have to prepare hard and strengthen our region within each other, because it's our only way to survive, you know. But as I've said a while ago, right, countries who have enjoyed economic benefits like us here in the past few years will now be suppressed if globalizations will slow down. So we hope that national patriotic nationalism will not be more enforced, because we are countries that are having a lot of benefits from globalization. But look what I showed you also, that a lot of countries are also, or companies are going to relocate to Indonesia.
Yeah.
But the real question is for how long also, although they are investments going to be put there. But I see a lot of opportunity for Indonesia to take advantage of this. Yeah. And you have a big market also. So maybe Indonesia will be different from us, maybe more progressive, because you have a good domestic consumption as well.
Okay. Think clear, Charlie.
Yeah, Kurniawan Ilyas, why Malaysia's economic growth in the 19th era was relatively stable. That's a good observation. You know what the answer is? It's very simple, one word. They had a good leader during the 19th era, Mahathir, right? Very good leader. That was the ingredient. I think the biggest formula to survive the COVID-19 is leadership. If the leader doesn't know what to do and doesn't act fast, and until now he is thinking about it, the people will die and go hungry. Yeah. So it's not because he doesn't know the solution, but the leaders has to be fast and be decisive, that they know what the solution is about. And he should get the right people on the bus, you know, to solve the problem. Because we have already lost a lot of time. We have lost 5 months already, and people are dying, and the rate of dying people will increase significantly. So we have no time to waste. We are not going to sell to the government that supply chain is important. They should really come on board and get this thing implemented by us already, more than ever, really. Not because of we are the ones, but they have lost a lot of time. And this is their only way to survive. Save lives, maintain peace and order, because there's enough food on the table, and make sure that the economy and the SMEs are protected and their supply chains are humming or operating.
Okay.
Okay.
Clear.
Next one. How to solve the problem of supply chain in the pandemic area? Because the condition is normally many factories are closed and cannot produce something. Yeah, I think I talk a lot of this. First of all, many companies doesn't even appreciate at the highest level what supply chain can do for them. Only for them to find out suddenly because of COVID-19 that their company is slowing down or already closing, and they cannot anymore produce anything. And there are companies that is even with good supply chain, they will close, right? Restaurants close, retail close, even with good supply chain. It's because we have now entered into a new normal. Even with good supply chain, they will close. So they have to reinvent, or maybe it's a time to close their business already and move to another business. You know, instead of losing more money every day, right? They have to cut, you know, the losses and move to our new business. And we're so excited because supply chain business is one of the best business that's going to make a lot of money in the future. That's why we're here.
Yeah.
Yeah, even the salaries of supply chain people is going to get higher and higher. And we're seeing that already. And that's good for us because we're starting to get appreciated. Just like nurses, they have low salaries. Supply chain people, they have low salaries, but right now, they will now understand that we have to be paid more than what we're currently receiving right now. Next question. How do we make good negotiation for some contracts which impact because of COVID-19 pandemic? How do you make? Either you get somebody who will negotiate for you. Hire us and we will negotiate and help you negotiate. Or
hire Khalid.
or you because I saw that many companies doesn't train their people on good negotiation, particularly in procurement and supply chain. Okay. But that is one of our if you saw my e-learning, there is a big suite of negotiations training online. You can finish it in a couple of days. And there's a lot of practices, and you can even get a certification on negotiation. But everybody has to be good in negotiation because with COVID-19, we negotiate a lot, right? Even if you have to close your company, you have to tell your landlord not to charge you and not to ask more money from you, because they know the landlord, they know that you are losing money, but still asking for more money from you, huh?
Yeah.
So
extraordinary negotiation.
Extraordinary. And there are two types of negotiation: tactical and strategic.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to identify what type of negotiation skills you want, because we have in the world, we are the biggest trainer on negotiations in the world for procurement and supply chain.
Yeah.
So that's very important. Yeah. How do we? Okay. Abdul Haris, in your research, what is the current trend of strategic sourcing implementation? How it can be well implemented in this pandemic situation, especially in public organization? What skill set and tool need to be provided, optimize the outcome of this methodology? Okay, very good answer, Abdul. Very good question, Abdul. Many countries or even many companies doesn't even know how good their people are on strategic sourcing. So what we do is like we subject these people to what we call development needs analysis. They sit down for 1 hour, they answer 200 questions, and it will profile whether they have the right skills on strategic sourcing. And that report is available individual, and that report is available also as a country or as a nation or as a company. So you can see the skill sets, whether they're good or not on specific. There are 8 areas in strategic sourcing process, and they will be tested if they know. And if they are good at that, they will say not a lot of training needed on this area, but if they're not good on portfolio analysis or stakeholder engagement or price and cost analysis, then they will suggest that this is the training needed for that particular individual or group of people. So the trend for strategic sourcing is rising like this, very, very fast. Because, for example, when you do strategic sourcing for test kits or PPEs that you need, or for hospitals, you are not negotiating here of getting 3 coats and looking at the lowest price or negotiating blah, blah, blah. Countries has to think about, if you need more hospitals, can you create buildings, convert them condominiums, convert them to hospitals? Do you have factories? If you have factories and you don't have ventilators or PPEs, can we convert factories into producers of ventilators or producers of PPEs or rubber gloves? So you need, and that's part of strategic sourcing. You know, you are not just buying. Buying is easy. Purchasing is very easy. But strategic sourcing is getting rigorous process and looking beyond what can be done in acquiring goods and services. The most important thing in strategic sourcing is A, assurance of supply, right? Q, quality, you know. S, service, you know. C, cost. Cost is not always the number one, you know, and that is the wrong side of purchasing. You may get the lowest price, but you will not the best benefit for your country or for your company. So we can tell you more of strategic sourcing if you are certified already. And we have a lot of, I'm very happy because we have a lot of certified strategic sourcing professionals from Indonesia, really. Okay. We've been very successful in and this is available on online training, face-to-face, or even e-learning is available. Let's go to the next question from SP. Okay. In the current situation of COVID-19 outbreak, everything changed, yes, including agricultural sector, very much, which is generally located in the village. The big obstacle for small farmers is the marketing aspect, correct? Perhaps because of lack of mastery of technology, social media, yes, come in from elderly in the village, yes. The one who makes the money is really the middleman, right? The traders. The farmers are the one that getting the small portion of the money. What is the solution for small farmers in villages where the majority do not master communication technology? Yeah, first of all, I don't know how it is in Indonesia, but internet is going to be very important. There is no technology if we don't know internet connection. And in some areas, there is also a problem on internet availability. But in terms of technology, more and more farmers and their children knows how to use a lot of apps in their mobile phones, using mobile phones. I've seen a lot of applications and systems wherein farmers can sell their produce online. I see that this is going to grow. This will change very fast. Even farmers, old people, and with their children, they're starting to be more comfortable in using Facebook, applications, and many other things. I have an 80-year-old mother. He did not use any technology or mobile phone. But when COVID broke out, we gave him a gift of cell phone. And it looks like he spends more time in social media than we are using social media. Every time that I wake up in the morning, he gives me the report on stock market, in all of the news, everything. She's faster than anybody I know. And she's very quick. And even old people, they can easily adapt given that gadget and given internet bandwidth. A little coaching and a little help gets them into the system. But you know what? Their children are the best enablers. Their children know. Yeah. There is no children right now who doesn't have a cell phone, right? They will get a cell phone one way or another, and that will change. And I can tell you, I feel sorry for the traders who have been taking advantage of the farmers. That days will be over soon. You know, more farmers will have direct access to sell their products in good prices that they are entitled to benefit from. Good. Risa, in this situation, what policy should the government do to recover from economic degradation in associating with the supply chain aspect? The problem with government, they are not too knowledgeable about what supply chain can do for them. Maybe they understand purchasing, but they don't know plan, source, and move, and they don't know orchestrating it. They don't know that in order to save lives, you need to have the vaccine or the test kits on time. You know, so scheduling, planning is very important. You know, the problem, countries haven't put a minister of supply chain. It may sound so crazy idea, but if there is a minister for education, for IT, for economics, why don't we have a minister for supply chain integration? Yeah. Honestly, if you take a look at it, you know, maybe Pak Khalid or Pak Khairul could, you know, apply for that position soon, or have a team of people. But I think you need to build something in terms of awareness and an office to really get to handle that. I think that's very important because, or else, even without COVID, you will need that supply chain team anyway when there are natural disasters. You will need that supply chain team because of globalization or nationalism or just to boost the economy. The economy will not improve without good supply chain.
Yeah, agreed.
So the nation has to train their people in good supply chain.
Agreed.
Next, Aditya. How to help our suppliers who are short of orders during the COVID-19 pandemic and only depend on our company for the continuity of production. What should we do if the supplier does not want to support our company anymore? Okay, the problem that you have, Aditya, is the problem of thousands and thousands of companies right now. This is a very common problem. Some suppliers are dying already, and some of them are still operating, but they cannot produce everything that you want for them. Why? Because even their suppliers cannot support them to supply them with the right raw materials. Their employees are sick or cannot come into office. And even if they want to come to the factory, they don't want to come to the factory because they know they could get the virus. And factory is one of the biggest areas that they could get virus also. And even if they are the only customers, they avoid customers. Can you imagine? Before they like customers, now they want to avoid customers.
Yeah.
Because some customers also are being avoided because some of the customers ask for more discounts. And sometimes they do not pay on time. Or sometimes they never pay their suppliers because the suppliers are holding the money also. So very important to have an open discussion with your critical suppliers. You need to assure them that there is continuity, and you need to find out from them what is needed from them as well. So there is more the importance of supplier performance monitoring and supplier collaboration is going to be more important in the new normal. We cannot treat our suppliers because suppliers will not be so many. Suppliers will die. Fewer suppliers, what do? You don't squeeze when you have fewer suppliers. You partner with them more. You be good to your suppliers because without suppliers, you will not have business.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of discussions. I hope that is one answer that I can provide.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you agree about the theory that the main component of bid price is procurement bidding is supply and demand of goods? What do you think? The answer is yes and no, Pak Agus. I will tell you that price is only a suggestion. Cost is the reality.
Cost the reality. Yeah.
Right?
Right.
If I'm buying iPhone, I know that the cost of iPhone is $64. If I break down this plastic, if I break down this cable, I know its price. And we did this already for iPhone. The cost of iPhone is $64. How much do I buy for this?
$600.
$600. So price is a suggestion. Cost is the reality. But is it about supply and demand of goods? You are correct. Yes. If look at the vaccine, whoever will pay higher for the vaccine will get the vaccine.
Yeah.
Who pays higher for the PPE and the test kit will get the PPE and the test kit.
Yeah.
So that's what we teach in strategic sourcing. It's what we call portfolio analysis. You need to find out, what is called supplier preferencing. What is supplier preferencing? Supplier will look at you as a buyer, whether you are a good buyer or a nuisance buyer, right?
Or exploited.
There are customers that they don't really like. They have more better customers to keep that they can sell at a higher price. So they want to sell. So it's you're correct. It's the theory main component of bid price is about supply and demand. Yes. Right now, I tell you, I sell you my car for free. I have 5 cars. I don't need 5 cars right now. I don't even need. I cannot go anywhere. I want to sell my car. Somebody want to pay it to me. You know, BMW for $2,000. I want to give it already.
Oh,
because I need the parking space in my garage. Because I don't have a demand for it. Wow. I see in the next 3 years I will not be using this car anyway, and I need my garage.
Yeah.
I tell you right now, I have a team is in the office. We have 2 big facilities. Since the last 5 months, not a single employee went to our office to work.
Yeah.
Everybody is working in the office.
Yep.
And I told my landowner, you still want me to pay full price, huh? I told him, I will close one of the facilities because I don't really need your facility after all. Who is crying? Not me. I save money. Now he is crying. He has no more money.
Yeah.
That is the story of supply and demand. And you will see that in Jakarta, where Khairul always brings me to those shopping places and big buildings, they will all be vacant in the next 2 months.
Yeah, correct. No, it's already.
I will bet Khairul, you know, I will bet that all of this real estate is going to crash very soon. Wait for 2 months. Wait before December. They're all closed already. I hope you did not invest too much on real estate.
Yeah, correct.
Because nobody wants to go back there anymore. Soon.
Yeah, correct. Okay, I think it's all, yeah?
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, it's very, very clear answers, Charlie. Probably you can explain a little bit what is different of outsourcing and outtasking. That's the one that you did mention before, Charlie.
Outsourcing is giving the work to a third party, everything for them to manage. In outtasking, you are not giving all of the control. You are still controlling the process, and you are giving a small part of an item that is not very strategic for you. Like, for example, in procurement, you do a lot of things in procurement. You buy, you negotiate, you assess your suppliers, you implement the procurement system. Many work in procurement. What companies are doing right now is to outtask supplier assessment. So companies goes to us, we provide, we do the assessment of all of their suppliers, and we are the company who does it for them. But for them, they set the rules. This is what we want to find out: financial, quality, factory, operations. So we do everything, and we obey the customer, and we give them all of the reports.
Okay.
So the good thing about their procurement, they can do more with less, and they don't have to pay everything, not a single money, because the one who pays is the supplier for the service.
Okay. So that's one that, that's the one services that you have already know, yeah.
Yeah, very successful service actually.
That's the ADR one, the one that you presented.
This is the GPAS.
Oh, GPAS, okay.
Global platform for assessing suppliers.
Okay. So, what about your procurement agents? What kind of scope that you are taking now?
What's happening, because companies would like to buy their own materials or supplies, but they're working with us as a procurement agent to be able to look for the suppliers, because we have more people and we have more contacts on suppliers. We negotiate, and the supplier, we are the ones now who supply. So we, as a company, we source, but we also trade now. We are now the procurement agent. So we quote to our customers. If they want to buy, for example, if they want to buy soda ash, for example, we used to give them suppliers, but right now it's going that don't give us suppliers. Why don't you be the one to sell it to us? You get the suppliers and you give us a proposal and we will buy from you. So we are the ones who are just running it for them.
Okay.
That's a procurement agent concept.
Charlie, may I ask one?
Yes. Yes.
I have some question, but actually it's a lot maybe next time. Yeah, we don't have a lot of time. I think the stage of the solution that presented by Charlie is very valuable to both concern general policy formulation in government. The stage is very comprehensive and very logical. I think I see that it can be implemented in Indonesia. 3 areas: supply chain, procurement, logistics aspect. Is our focus can no longer only be on how to manage financial administration, but must move revolutionary to supply chain based expenditure management.
Yeah.
Charlie, one thing that's very interesting in my opinion, it was Charlie said it's very suitable in condition in Indonesia. According to Charlie, is this condition happen in Indonesia? Is at present what is very well known by the public is how fast the growth of COVID victim. While the information in our logistical strength is overcome our problem until this pandemic is passed, like PPAs or medical or any kind. Is this condition happen in Asian countries, another Asian countries, Charlie? Like in your country, Philippines, Malaysia, Singapore, maybe Japan. Conditional is happen in Asian countries?
If you look at it, successful countries, I look at the numbers.
Yeah.
The successful countries are either communist countries who behave, and countries who are very much disciplined and advanced in supply chain. That's my personal. This is not about. It's not about Philippines or Indonesia who doesn't know how to do it. I think they know how to do it, but the discipline is not there inside that country. And even if they know it, the knowledge is not on top of who makes the decision. It's below. It's you guys who know how to do it, but somebody on top who should lead it doesn't know the solution on the supply chain. It happened to be that he is a minister or he is a general, but it doesn't mean that he knows supply chain. And he thinks it's operations management, but it's more than operations management. You need to orchestrate the 3 areas, right? You need to juggle these 3 balls. You need to have visibility, supply chain planning, strategic sourcing, and integrate everything. It's hard, but it can be done. And if you are spending so much money on many things, I think this is the most important area that investment of the government has to be placed on to survive, to protect the health of the citizens. Isn't it? Yeah. And, every time that is delayed is killing more people. And this thing is not going to stop. I cannot tell you, this thing is not going to stop. We're just getting started.
Yeah.
When you see people knocking into your doors, then you will start believing me that we should have done this already. And starting to happen. The crime rate is going up. Then because some people are starting to get hungry.
But Charlie, in your presentation, I see one very interesting term. You explain about consideration is in sustainability. We now in crisis. Why you explain to us about priorities about sustainability in solution of supply chain?
Yeah, there are 2 reasons.
Long term.
Yeah,
but now we now in crisis.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you sustainability before was important, but right now survival is more important. If I don't survive, there's no supply, there's no sustainability. But I think if we provide items to survive, we should always carry sustainability, because sustainability is three-legged, right? Financial, social, and the other thing. But so it has to be addressed altogether, because if you don't create sustainability, you will leave out the people, right? You cannot leave out the people. Everybody has to survive, and everybody should be given the fair chance also. So the actions of companies in business has to also be people-oriented. It has to be environmental. It also has to be financial. How can you become sustainable if you are bankrupt already? You don't have any more money. You cannot support your employees if your company doesn't have any more money. If the government doesn't collect enough taxes, the government cannot give enough assistance to the people. So always carry with it. But I know what you're saying. You cannot be sustainable and unable to survive. So survive first, then you can become sustainable. I agree.
It's very interesting, Charlie. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Very nice questions too. Very provoking questions.
He's always a provocator, Charlie.
Yeah. Very good, very good.
Yeah, very interesting. Charlie say about we are still accustomed the human buying goods. Human come to goods. Now the goods must come to human, because the human is hidden in our house on home.
Yeah, it's tough, no? It's not easy too, right? It's and as I've said, not to scare you, but do you think we're done with this by the end of the year? I don't think so. It's just beginning. If there's no vaccine and infection keeps on rising, then we're really in trouble. I cannot come to Jakarta or Indonesia. It will take time, maybe next 2 years, or I don't know. But it's tough also, right?
Very scary.
But we have to be scared not only on the virus. I think what we really have to be scared is the economy. Because when the economy goes down, people lose jobs and no money, and people will get hungry and die. And that is bigger than the COVID, right?
We must develop the logistic channel, the best logistic channels.
While you have time, what is the strategy of your country? Who is in charge in putting this strategy?
That's
and is he competent to really drive this strategy?
That's the challenge, actually. Well, there is a formal team now.
The country has a lot of money. Why don't you hire somebody from the outside, bring them here, and get him implement the national pandemic, and to work with the local Indonesians?
Temple Charlie, eh?
Why not? Yeah, but I think honestly that should be the way, right? Because if it's not currently important, you get the best consultants to help you, and we'll bring the best consultants to organize this for Indonesia. Really. And you have no time to study this. Get the people who knows how to do it and implement it rapidly already.
Yeah, in the future, human resources who have supply chain management expertise will be needed in this new world.
Yeah.
Okay.
Put a center.
Very interested, Charlie.
Okay, Pak Khalid. I think the time is over 2 hours already.
15 minutes. Charlie.
That's okay. I'm enjoying it also. And if there's any way that I can help you in the future, I'm sure, KM and partners and PASIA are, through Khairul, is very close. So we'll help out, collaborate, find ways to, to support Indonesia to survive this. If you survive, maybe I'll transfer also to Indonesia and have application.
I know what your requirement, Charlie. Don't worry. Okay, I think Pak Khalid, the time is over. You can give a closing statement, probably.
Yeah, I think there are no more closing statement because all of the closing statement is taken by Charlie. So we just hope this COVID-19 pandemic is over, and our country is already to finish this. And we hope, Charlie, our communication not stop from now. We can communicate later, and maybe we can cooperate each other, especially with supply chain management. Okay, I think just that. Thank you very much, Charlie, for your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Charlie.
Thank you very much. Appreciate this. Thank you
very much for everybody. Charlie, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you,
Charlie.
Samsui.
See you, Charlie.
Okay.
Khairul, thank you very much, Pak Samsul.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Pak Samsul, Pak Khalid, Pak Har. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam pengadaan.
Salam pengadaan.
Waalaikumsalam.